Okay. So, hi everybody. My name is Eugene. I am competition organizer. I want to welcome you to the final interview. Congratulations that you made it so far. All of the judges were excited about your presentation. We're very impressed with the quality of your analysis of this case study, and looking forward to this interview. So after the interview, I'm hoping to get back to you within hopefully less than a week with the final results, which will determine your standing in the top three, right? You will be receiving scholarships regardless. If you get first place, you will get a little more, but not to worry, you will get something for sure. Right. So with that, we have less than 45 minutes. Any questions?
My teammate Brandon Scott is reporting he can't see anyone. Brandon, can you see us now? Seems we have one person with a technical issue, but can you hear us, Brandon? That's really, can you hear? Here. He can hear, so audio is good. Let's continue.
All right. Yeah. Hopefully he'll be able to sort it out. So with that, I'm going to pass to Alex, who will ask the first question.
Hi, Ransom fighters, and welcome to getting here in the final round again. Congratulations.
My apologies. We have an audio visual as well. Brandon can hear but not talk.
Okay, and hopefully we'll let Brandon to sort out his technical difficulties. Unfortunately, we are at the board meetings right now, and we'd like to hear your recommendations towards what happens, your analysis towards what happens, and what would you recommend in the given circumstances.
Naturally.
So I would love to start with just give us a little overview of what you think happened so far. What's the deficiency, if anything? What's the shortcomings, if anything? And what we should do given the first four injects.
Oh, just considering the first four? Well,
Yeah.
First and foremost, we should make it very clear that we are PharmaQuire consultants. And we were brought in after Inject 4. We're assuming we haven't been notified about Inject 5 yet. We're going to get notified about it shortly. Okay. We're aware of Inject 1 through 4. We were in the pre-M&A phase. Both companies are in the same market sector, complementary products. There are cost, revenues, and distribution synergies here to be had. And prior to the injects, it was an attractive deal. However, due to the fact that a cyber attack has occurred, we're very concerned because it has revealed vulnerabilities within their NIST framework. We've heard nothing of identity access management or SOC 2 audit utilization. We've heard nothing that would suggest they might be a good partner. At this particular phase in the deal lifecycle, we would want to reevaluate the deal price. We will want to conduct IT due diligence to determine where their vulnerabilities are, what assets they have, etc. And if an undisclosed breach occurs at this point, we would be looking at a carve out at best. It might scale the deal entirely. That would be our posture. To reevaluate, renegotiate deal value, peg a new price for the deal, conduct IT due diligence. And assuming the deal would have went forward at this point, we'd be looking to salvage the company's network. However, as of Inject 5, that would have changed drastically.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. At one of the first events was the ransomware event, and one of the suggestions was just to pay the ransom and recover the encrypted assets. Like, what do you think about that recommendation?
So it was a very low price and kind of suspicious, as we found out in the later Inject visits. It was a smokescreen and a diversion for other attacks that targeted the deal team itself. As the CISO noted in his report, there's been targeted phishing campaigns aimed at the C-suite. I would say you would pay the ransom because there's no reason not to, but I wouldn't expect anything to come of it. Perhaps you get your customer database back. Perhaps that happens, but perhaps it's a NotPetya type of cyber attack where the ransomware is a smokescreen, and it doesn't matter if you pay or not because your data is destroyed effectively.
Right.
There's some legal liabilities to be considered. I don't think any company has ever been tagged with this, but you could be considered to be sponsoring terrorism if you fund a cyber criminal organization. And that's before we even get to actual terrorist organizations or APTs that are generally nation state backed.
So would you recommend to pay or not to pay the ransom?
25K is a very cheap price for a Hail Mary. You may get it back, you may not.
Okay,
I would say
got
pay.
it. I got the answer. So from your analysis, like, what do you think? All of these incidents, again, so far, do they look like isolated incidents, or it's a part of their more coordinated attack? And if, like, who might be attacking the company?
Master, you want to take this one? I could talk all day, but do you want to tap this one?
Yeah, so it could be basically anyone. It could be someone just doing it for fun or a larger country size, maybe China, maybe somewhere in Europe, Russia, any of those. It could be with any size type of attack.
To follow up on what Matthew said, pharmaceutical companies, they have what both criminals and nation states want, what they have: intellectual property, trial data, trade secrets. Even the failed trial data speeds up the drug development process. So yes, it could be someone doing it for fun. It could be an organized cyber criminal organization like Evil Corp. It could be APT affiliate like Lazarus Group. It could be the top tier APT like 28, which is GRU. They can be in your system in 29 minutes. If you have their attention, you really have something someone wants.
Would it be a
Right.
potential partner or potential company we're merging with just to try to put the pressure on the stock price?
Say again. That's a possibility, but I believe that they would utilize a company like Black Cube. They would use a private intelligence agency. Those guys are mercenaries. They only deal with the C-suite. And if you're going to do some sort of corporate espionage deal, that's that's possible. This is not outside the realm of possibility, but you wouldn't be going to the GRU. You wouldn't be going to Evil Corp. You'd be going to Black Cube and asking for, listen, I want a cyber warfare team. Can you get me some tailored access operations guys? Can you give me some Mossad people to do the social engineering and to compromise people in person for their credentials? That's what you would do if it's corporate espionage. You would go to a private intelligence agency.
Okay.
So I'm going to throw a wrench and then we'll go back on track. Simply because we went this way, the conversation. So if let's say Wall Street reporter gets an anonymous call saying that Pharma Acquire is paying somebody like that to conduct a campaign against Pharma Core to reduce their stock price intentionally.
Okay, let me hear this straight.
Under which laws can they be prosecuted, and if it's confirmed?
Okay, let me understand if I hear you correctly, Mr. Levine. You're telling me that a conversation that would have occurred from CEO to CEO somehow got to the ears of a Wall Street reporter?
No, I'm saying that PharmaCore is intentionally paying somebody to hack PharmaCore to reduce stock price.
Well, if that's the truth, we're into slander and libel territory. I know that's going to be quite hard to prove, and I'm no lawyer. Mr. Dinkin maybe could talk about that one. But I would say that's very damaging. It would be a very lengthy legal process because if this did occur, it would definitely be front page news or near the front of the fold. And if it was a libelous accusation, someone's paying a lot of money or going to jail for that one. Either way, I can't tell you exact laws because I'm an international relations security guys. If you want me to overthrow a country, I can tell you how to do it, but don't ask me about the laws involved. I usually ignore the law.
That's not a necessarily great answer. I think Barry would agree on that. Okay, so let's go back on track. So far, the 4 incidents that we had, the 4 inserts, ransomware, email theft, PHI, long breach. It looks like the board was concerned, but it didn't derail them from the recommendations to go proceed with the deal. I think now we need to go to the final insert, and this is the malware infection. And I
Mhm.
think Steven gonna want to dig deeper into the malware infection.
Okay.
Thank you, Alex. Hopefully Brandon can hear and see us now. I would say shaking his head,
Yep.
maybe yes.
Okay,
I can
Brandon,
hear you
great.
now. Everything's good.
Great, great,
Please
great,
be
great
allowed
to
that.
great to see and hear you. Thank you for coming on. So yeah, so now we're going to get into the fifth injection, widespread malware. Maybe you can provide a little bit of an overview on your perception of how that happened and what specific technical recommendations you may have given the uncovering of the widespread malware attack for, and that could be recommendations for specifically for Pharmaco, but perhaps other interested parties.
Brandon, you take this one away. Saul, if you have any ideas, jump in.
No problem. So, in Inject 5, there was a malware attack that ended up happening. Their PHI information to 200,000 personal records that got stolen, they found out that it was because of a website vulnerability. And this website vulnerability happened because they were relying on a third-party provider that wasn't necessarily secure. They didn't patch their systems adequately, and that's what resulted in the hack happening. So, the technical suggestions that I would recommend for this would be to make sure that you have controls in place. If they were able, it said that in Inject 5, they did this to save money. But in the cybersecurity world, you can't afford to be, saving money. You have to throw money at these kinds of problems, because if you try to cheap out on a solution, it can result in your entire company going under. So, I would say that you need a SOC 2 audit to make sure that the vendors are keeping up with security standards, making sure that they're patching often, and do your own due diligence on these companies. Don't just rush into things. How these vendors manage their information can affect you and your companies and your consumers' bottom line. So it's very important to do vendor risk assessment and look into the qualitative and quantitative risk of these different vendors.
That's a great explanation. Felix, anything to add on?
I do, but first things first. Saul, is there any technologies in the NIST framework that could have helped, detect this sort of thing? And then I'll throw in my closing thoughts, but I want to hear my teammate Saul speak a little bit. Like file integrity management, identity access management, monitoring anomalous.
Hello?
Yeah, go. Oh, you can hear us? Cool. Go
Yeah.
ahead, brother. Take it
Yeah,
away.
everything's good?
Yeah, so technologies from the NIST framework would be like access management, because it allows you to know who is doing what in the network and can combine with other technologies such as decoupled architecture and a zero-one way trust to further secure a network. And like Brandon said, I'd like to add on with the SOC. It's always a good idea to perform to test the effectiveness of a service provider before you become associated with them. And like he also mentioned how they decided to proceed with the third party because it was less expensive and effective. But then again, you got to do your part and what you call it. You want to do your part to make sure that that's the right team you want to be with.
Okay. Speaking of teams, I got Fortinet on the mind, by the way, but I'll get to them in a second. I think the main thing everyone needs to realize is you're in a globalized economy, everything's interconnected. That means cybersecurity is a permanent vulnerability. You have to shore it up. You can't cheap out on this. Okay. So first and foremost, if as a farm acquirer consultant, I would be looking back at my farm acquirer board like, hey, listen, if you didn't have cybersecurity insurance before now, you might want to get some. And you want to make sure you are in line with all the dot your I's, P's and Q's, straighten out all your regulatory crap, because they're going to try to get out of it like they try to get out of pain with Merck. They want to say it was an act of war because some intelligence agency's cyber warfare or cyber espionage team was involved. But they did pay out, but it took 5 years for the payout. So you don't even want 5 years is a long time to wait for some sort of money that could either save or sink your company. So that's number one.
They got like $1.4 billion.
All right, to talk more about zero technologies. Okay, identity access manager. That's very simple. Who's doing what in your network? IT and human personnel inventory. So that means you want to know what your endpoints are and who your high priv accounts are. You want some sort of way to detect, do some threat modeling. Basically, remember Inject 4, the 200K records that got extracted without anyone knowing? That's anomalous traffic. That should have been picked out because that's a folder that should be downloaded to, as in you should be putting stuff in it. You shouldn't be taking out. So 200K files worth of traffic coming out should have been a red flag and required human intervention.
Yeah, certainly agree. And not to cut you off too much, just to refocus on Inject
Yes.
5, just one last, kind of key element that I think that I would like to hear your team's thoughts on.
Absolutely.
Is the impact to the data center, and data center operations. I think this is a pretty core element that we haven't heard much about yet. What's going on there? Why do we have to now conduct manual business processes where there should be some other type of fail-safe, right? That I would expect to be in place.
Well, what I want to say is, first and foremost, we shouldn't even be in this situation because as of Inject 4, this malware thing is not new to us. We suspected malware as of Inject 4. It was in the document. There was website stability issues. What should have happened 10 days ago was they should have pulled up the drawbridge. Geofenced and IP whitelisted only critical IPs necessary to conduct business. Everything else should have been locked down while forensic auditors were brought in to thoroughly clean out the system. But since we're here, since the data centers are effective, since you got man in the middle by the website provider getting backdoored, the reason you're doing everything by hand is because your sales and your logistics system is shut down. You can still produce drugs, you can still ship drugs, but without an external shipping provider, you're kind of locked down. And that would be the fix to this situation. I don't care who you call, FedEx, DHL, the Post, I don't care who you call, but you need to get these life-saving drugs out there to the people who need them most before you start having body counts on the Wall Street Journal with Pharmaco in the tagline. And that's a real PR disaster right there.
It sounds almost nihilistic. All right, so for the sake of moving on, I'll hand it over. I think David is going to take on the next question. Go ahead, David.
Hey, David Chang here, an auditor for.
Yes, but yeah, if you could introduce yourself, yes, thank you.
Yes. So I'm one of the auditors for MUFG Bank, which is another name for Bank of Tokyo. So first of all, congratulations on being in the interview.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the time to see us.
Yeah, I'm going to switch gear a little bit less technical, but more asking a little bit more on the legal perspective, right? And especially as a consultant, what would be your recommendation? Now, for different inject, we talk about potential data leakage perspective. So as a consultant capacity, what do you think, how many law that the company may have breached?
Ooh.
And how that affect your recommendation as a consultant for these merger and acquisition to take place or not?
Yeah. So
Master,
I was actually
you got this, Brandon? Go ahead, take it.
Yeah. So as far as we were looking at the regulatory damages, like there's so many, we even broke it down with the cost of the breach. There's the GDPR, which is in Europe, the APPIs in Japan, the FTC breaches. Like on the low end, we're looking at like 20 million plus the 75 million they had to do. And then at the high end, if the SEC and the FTC really make an example out of them, they can have, as you said in the presentation, they had a negative net present value. So I think that, as Felix said earlier, we should focus on carving out their most profitable divisions and focus on that primarily instead of trying to acquire them.
So
China, don't even forget China's involved in this one too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Don't forget PIPL.
So as a consultant, when you're discussing with a board member like us, right, what would be your recommendation as a consultant?
I'll take this one if you don't mind. We carve out of only the parts of the company that would provide synergy and cost and revenue. That is distribution channels. That is shelf space. They already have shelf space for their own products. It costs money to get shelf space from what I'm told. So why not take theirs? Sales reps. They have operations in Ukraine, China, and various parts of Europe and North America. We could probably see some synergies there. Even if all their intellectual property was lost tomorrow, which we don't know if that's the case, I think it's reasonable to assume that some intellectual property is lost, but not all of it. The minds behind the R&D divisions, their top stars could be acquired. But generally speaking, we don't need the entire company. We just need the profitable divisions that would work within, that would complement our current operations. As it stands, we were good before we met them. Our company
Okay,
was
hold on. So
thriving.
Felix, we are Pharmaco board. So effectively, you are offering right now to break up company and sell it piece by piece. Is that what you recommending?
Wait, am I talking to the Pharmaco board or the Pharmacquire board? Because I represent Pharmacquire, sir.
I think the recommendations for Pharmaco board, right?
No, we're recommending to the Pharmacquire board whether or not to acquire this company. If you want me to speak to the Pharmaco board, I can switch lanes, but you
Okay.
have to be very explicit and specify that. Because everything I'm thinking about is to benefit Pharmacquire, who has hired me.
Okay, great explanation.
Okay. The sad truth of the matter is, whatever happens to Pharmaco, as long as their negative PR doesn't affect us vis-a-vis merger rumors, which we can squash with a PR firm, it doesn't matter to us what happens to them. Before the merger, we were in pre-M&A phase. We're not even wedded to them. Not at all. However, because we're in the same market space and they have complementary products, we do injectables, they do over-the-counter pills, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
Regardless of what the product is, the fact is their products complement ours. We take their products, we take their distribution channels, we take their logistics, we take their sales, we take their best R&D minds, and we combine that, and we will have cost and revenue synergy.
So
Those are
basically,
complementary.
again, sorry to interrupt you again. So you are recommending not the merger, I just proceed with the hostile
Absolutely
takeover.
not. Absolutely hostile takeover. No merger. There's not even equals. If they merged willingly, it would be at a fire sale price. If Pharmaco wanted to merge, they're fire selling their company, and we're only taking what we need. At this point, it's every executive and director for themselves.
Okay.
That's what it comes down to, bottom line. They can get the golden parachute. The rest of their employees, unfortunately, are going to have a bad day.
So for back to the question, right? So for merger recommendation, you
Carve
would
out.
not. Well, pause. Okay, let me finish. So you would not recommend a merger. Period.
Absolutely not. We would
Okay.
recommend a hostile
You
takeover and a
will-
carve out.
Well, understand, but I don't think that was one of the option. But if we have to proceed with a merger, you will not. You will say a no. Is that correct?
If you are forcing me into a binary choice, which is yes or no, the answer is no. If I'm
Okay.
not allowed to do a carve out, then I'm not taking it at all.
But that's usually a business decision, right? So, but as a recommendation, you said no merger. If hostile
hit-
takeover can be done, it'll be done. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chang.
Eugene, I think
Yeah.
we can have Barry.
Barry, you wanna go with the next question?
Yes. Hello, my name is Barry Dinkin, and I'm the president of Atlas Cybersecurity and the co-executive director of the American Cybersecurity Institute. And I'm also a cybersecurity lawyer by background. So I'm going to ask you some more questions on the legal side. What are some of the, in addition to what you've already discussed, ways in which the pre-breach posture of Pharmaco may have been violative of laws or regulations, and what regulations and laws may have applied post-breach that were not fully complied with by Pharmaco?
Just to make sure I heard you right, Mr. Dinkin. Pre-breach, did they violate any laws? Is what I'm hearing. And post-breach, what are the laws they could have violated?
Both of them are hypothetical. Could have. I'm not saying that they have or haven't. That's
Hypothetically,
yeah.
Brandon or Saul or Matt, if y'all want to take this one, but I feel like HIPAA, whatever the California, what is it, CPPA? California CCPA.
Yeah.
HIPAA, CCPA in particular come to mind since personal health information was affected by this.
So let me elaborate a little more. Before the breach, were there any issues? So once the breach occurred, they had certain obligations under the HIPAA, but were there obligations as to how they handled the data, how they managed it, how they stored it, that could have been potential issues under the law before the breach occurred?
This sounds like a NIST cybersecurity framework question,
Yeah.
which our answer to would be undoubtedly yes, because their posture was insufficient. And identify, protect, and detect alone.
Yeah.
Response and
was at
recover.
one.
Response and recover is company survival, but we're talking about stopping it. The first four, like we were talking about detecting it and being able to stop it before it even
Before it happens.
before data leaks. So that's the first four in this framework. Yeah. They had no, even though they had a response plan on the books, it was woefully outdated. That's why they were categorized as non-existent. They might as well have not even had one. So undoubtedly, I mean, I'm no lawyer. I don't think any of us have any legal training, but if I was to go into the books and go digging and I looked for how data needs to be protected at rest and all the regulatory frameworks that need to be applied, I'm sure I would find a smoking gun without more than a few hours of work. They didn't do, I heard nothing about SOC 2 audits being conducted on themselves or any other vendors. We heard nothing about SOC 2 in the documents, correct? No SOC 2. We know that
Nothing.
this framework is insufficient. It should at least have been a 3 across all functions, with plan to get to 4 over the lifetime of the company. Fact of the matter is, people's private health information was leaked in the end. So prior to that, they undoubtedly violated some more law regarding how well the data should have been secured. Now, having the data leaked, oh yeah, they definitely violated
That's
laws.
something. Yep.
HIPAA is going to be mad at them. California too.
Matthew, Saul, Brandon, do you have anything to add?
I mean, even they're like, when we were talking about recovered, like if they had like the NIST framework in place, if they had the immutable indelible storage, it would have been like a non-issue. So
I think your analysis here is completely right on the actual cybersecurity questions. Let me ask the question in a different way. Is there a legal requirement for a pharmaceutical company to comply within this framework?
I'm going to be honest. I do not know of any such requirement to comply with any framework. I know it's a framework and it's a strong recommendation. I think what matters legally, and again, I would have to actually do legal research here because it's not my specialty. Was their data protected, period? Was it encrypted? Did they do their job in diligence as far as protecting consumer data? So I don't care what, I guess that's what it would boil down to, I would assume. Like I'm assuming at this point. But if that's all that matters, then it doesn't matter what framework was applied. However, NIST cybersecurity framework and SOC 2 are industry best practices. Okay, like for example, if this was a data security thing, the law may not require you to do this, but if I wanted to secure data perfectly well and have true peace of mind, I would follow what the NSA does as far as data security and destruction. Even though if I'm not required to do it, I would do it anyway, because I could say my company does the best possible to protect your data. That gives people peace of mind. Hope it gives you
Sounds
peace of mind.
expensive.
What's more expensive? Is it more expensive? I mean, maybe that level is overkill, but generally speaking, what's more expensive? Do it right the first time or get caught with your pants down and have every state, local, and federal regulator after you before we can get to the international crew? It could kill your company if you fail at this.
Yeah, like we said before, like you can't go cheap out on cybersecurity or else you get screwed up in the long run.
I think
Like
that takes. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, listen, it's possible to spend too much, but you can't spend too little.
I think that segues us to Radhika's question.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. I think great discussion so far.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, no, good brainstorming. I think my question is around having heard everything and said everything so far, and I'm going to say one thing, just put like maybe one more range in this. I would really like to get the answer to my question from the other three team members, just to ensure that the entire team kind of learned from this exercise, right? Because at the end of the day, exercises like this is to ensure everybody is learning on the maturity curve perspective. So my question is around all the various different recommendations. Uh, I completely agree with you. Cybersecurity is important and everything, but then at the end of the day, organizations have budgets, right? And they have to deal with the budgets. Like everybody's CISO, CFO, everybody's dealing with the budgets at the end of the day. So if you have a certain budget constraints, among all the technical and non-technical recommendations that you provided for this resolution, what would be the top 2 or 3 that you would recommend? Because combining both technical and non-technical recommendations, the top 2 or 3 that you would recommend. And if anybody else apart from Felix would like to take this, nothing against Felix, but I want to ensure that there is enough opportunity for everybody to speak and share their thoughts.
So I'll take this one. Primarily the top 2 things would have to be the NIST, getting your NIST to level 3 and then getting it to level 4, throughout the lifetime of the company, and the SOC 2 audit, auditing your vendors. Because this Inject 5 would have never happened if they made sure that the vendors were up to standards and up to par. We saw that in Inject 5, they ended up having a problem with the vendor. And if you made sure from the beginning, from the start, are you doing this? You have meetings with them monthly with the vendors to make sure that they're doing their homework, then this would have never happened.
Great. And apart from because you have 2 more recommendations that you can select in your given budget constraints. So apart from SOC 2 audit, what will be the other 2?
He mentioned 2 already.
I mentioned
NIST. You missed NIST.
Oh, technical breakdown?
You want physical technologies. Okay, well, you got 2 more to talk about. Go ahead.
That would, as far as physical technologies, look into using SIEM and XDR to bring the detect portion of the NIST up to standard, so that you can have threat visibility and have more options when it comes to security. And then as far as the recovery and the respond, those 2. So you need the immutable and indelible storage to keep the data static so that it can't be tampered with. And then for the response side of things, you need to be able to respond to these events and these breaches happening. So you need efficient planning. You need a roadmap, a business continuity plan, a really good incident response plan, because they did have one, but it just wasn't up to par. So you need to be able to respond effectively, prepare for these unexpected events, and, education of your employees and customers. Your employees.
Okay, great. Thank you for covering that. I think in the interest of time, I will hand it over to Gehan.
Hey, thanks, Radhika. Hey, thanks, team. I think I heard enough in general. I would like to share this thought with the team and defer my time to another teammate here. This type of presentation needs to take context into consideration. You're presenting to a board. Formality is important, language is important, and how you coordinate as a team is important. So just a thought to share with you. And I also kind of share something from Hamilton, if I will. Aaron Burr's advice to Hamilton was talk less, smile more. So in your case, some of you need to talk more and smile less, and some of you need to talk less and smile more. Back to you, Eugene.
All right, Gihan, thank you. Rohan?
Hey guys, my name is Rohan Kamath. I'm the director for systems engineering at Fortinet. So I think some of you touched very good points about SIM and XDR. So I would like to ask this first question where, with respect to the ransomware, email theft, PHI theft that happened, Inject5. I mean, let's not talk about Inject5, but the first four things that happened. What would your actual technical steps be other than SIM and XDR? What are some of the things that you would do or recommend to make sure that ransomware and email theft does not happen again?
Use the technical controls, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna let you guys take this one.
Well,
They
I'd
don't want.
say, as far as the email theft is concerned, looking into like monitoring the emails with like a firewall or a next generation firewall to make sure that, you know, if those emails are leaving the company at a certain degree, if you're looking for certain indicators of compromised, if there's too much information that's leaving the company, you're like, why is this leaving the company? As far as that's concerned. And then what was the other one?
Are you asking me?
Could you please restate the question, sir?
Yeah, restate the question, please.
Yeah. So with respect to ransomware, PHI theft, email theft, I want to understand what would your technical recommendation be, architecture wise or physical device wise, on what would you recommend to the company? Yes, Felix, you can definitely answer.
Okay. Combination of technologies. Zero trust on critical systems where R&D, production, certain production systems, on systems where you need collaboration between workers, carefully manage one and two-way trust systems. Identity access management, preferably with a hardware solution like a YubiKey, would be ideal. You want to know who's doing what and if they have the appropriate level of access. File integrity management, it gives you a cryptographic baseline. This is very important, especially for the log files, because if you don't have FIM on your log files, if nowhere else, someone can come in, do their thing, and clear their own tracks in the log file. Those are the most important ones that come to mind. So, Matthew, you got anything that comes to mind? Tech only. Oh, did we mention the immutable indelible?
Yeah, we did.
Well, we didn't mention the vendors. On-prem, Veritas, Veeam does the cloud. I want redundancies, what we call the Green Beret rule. 2 is 1, 1 is none. I want double of all my backups, just in case we get hit, the worst case scenarios, we can come back from it.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Did you
And
mention
I think
Netrix?
Oh, Netrix?
File integrity, yeah, for the file integrity management.
Oh,
web
Netrix is real
application
good
firewall.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fortinet's not bad either. I've noticed that Fortinet has a lot of products to offer, by the way,
Yeah.
Mr. Kamat.
Oh no, thank you. This is more about it's not a vendor publishing thing, but okay. My second thing is we talked about cyber insurance very briefly. What do you think is the role of cyber insurance with the companies, and do you think they hold any power in recommending the customers what to buy, what not to buy?
I think that cyber insurance is very important. It's like a just in case something happens, you can get reimbursed. And now that these companies, the insurance companies, they don't want to have to reimburse you. So they're going to give you a breakdown of what you should do to give you the most security so that, if anything does happen, you're safe, you're good.
To follow up what Mr. Brandon said, they don't want to pay you, so they're going to make sure that they give you a list of things to follow, and you need to hit every single one, and not just hit the requirement, but exceed it. Yes, they do have immense power in ensuring regulatory compliance because they set the standard. And could you repeat your question one more time for me real quick, Mr. Kamat? I just want to make sure I've thoroughly
No, I,
answered
I
it.
think I think I got the answer. I think I got the
Very
gist of
good.
it. Cool. Thanks. Those are my questions. I would now hand it off to Eugene or Alex.
I think we have time for one more question. Alex, you want to?
Yeah, just one more question, probably. I mean, it's great presentation, some interesting answers. I have a question. When you discuss the case and when you come up with the recommendation, did you agree anonymously, or everyone like everyone agree on everything, or you have somebody who's had a different view on the recommendation?
Well,
I
we
can
definitely weren't anonymous, but I
Oh, yeah.
think we had a consensus.
You have consensus, right? I'm sorry. Yeah.
yeah.
But can we speak to that consensus, gentlemen? Did anybody else have a recommendation we
Yeah.
missed?
Yeah, when we're discussing this case study, I mean, we came to the consensus that to be a no-go, or as we discussed earlier in this meeting, we can have a carve out a pharmaco, but at the end of the day, if we can't do that, we can't go through with this deal. So then that was our general consensus as we worked on this case study.
Okay, so it was a unanimous decision to not to issue
Correct.
recommendation. Okay, great.
If there's nothing else, well, we want to thank you for your time and for being judges in this competition and hosting it for students like us. We're very thankful of your time and your expertise. We know your time is not free and valuable. So we know it's valuable. Well, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you for your time. Thank you for working very hard in this competition. Hopefully, you'll come back next year.
Definitely.
You know, I will try to get back to you within less than a week with the final results. Again, you know, hopefully it was a good experience for you. Tell your friends so that more people come back next year. And, you know, again, thank you very much for participation.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good
Thank you.
evening. Do swidania.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everybody. Great job.